Hello and welcome to the Future Leader Programme members only tutorial. Today I'm going to summarise the afternoon session that we had in London this week on Tuesday the 25th of February. I started off by showing you what we call our Everest mission, and I'm really keen for you to develop your own, and in particular the first three items of the Everest mission, which is the purpose, the values and the mission itself. Defining purpose is something which Simon Sinek did brilliantly well in his TED talk. It starts with why. He also wrote a book with the same title. And in it he states very clearly that profit is not a purpose. Profit is an output from the pursuit of something that is meaningful, that has purpose. For the Property Academy, our purpose is to inspire people and organisations to fulfil their potential. We believe that everybody has unfulfilled potential, and our role is to help them, to inspire them to fulfil it. We have three core values. We love to learn and share. We listen and deliver, and we seek the third alternative. And I also shared with you the Disney values of safety, courtesy, the show and efficiency, to highlight how a set of values can actually guide decision making and ensure that you are delivering against your promise all the time. The third part is the actual mission itself, and this is typically a 3 to 5 year goal, ideally a big stretch, something which you really want to achieve. So for us, it's to be the number one business membership organisation in any sector that we choose to operate in. For you, it could be something relating to your branch or to your business or to your department, but it needs to be something that's got a stretch and yet is realistically achievable within a 3 to 5 year time period. So you've now got a blank Everest mission document that you can complete and define your own purpose, values and mission. As we discussed, when it comes to the purpose, my sort of default offering is that estate agents enable people to get on with their lives. And what I didn't say yesterday, which I think is important, is that this not only applies to the customers, but also internally to the teams as well. The businesses enabling people to move on with their lives, to develop their careers. So what I'm really keen for you to do is to complete the first three parts of this: the purpose, the values and the mission. Now during the morning, Pete Wilkinson gave us a masterclass in his 1-3-5 action plan, and again you've got a template to create your own. Where I differ slightly from Pete is that I set the goals, the 5 as it were, on a 90-day basis. So I have the desired result, as Pete Wilkinson suggested, which is based on a brilliant outcome for the next 12 months or for the calendar year, with 3 core objectives that come out of that desired result. I then break the goals down onto a quarterly basis, and I don't restrict myself to 5 in any one objective, but I do restrict myself to 15 overall. So it could be that I have 3 in objective 1, I might have 7 in objective 2, and 5 in objective 3, or any other combination. But look, make it your own, as I said yesterday. The idea though is to get real clarity around what the desired result is, what the 3 core objectives are, and then what the immediate goals are that will lead towards your achieving those objectives. I mentioned how Mahatma Gandhi said that life is one indivisible whole. And I think this is so true. People often make the mistake of trying to compartmentalise, and yet what goes on in one dimension of your life always has an impact in another dimension. If you have a great week at work, you bring that home for the weekend. And similarly, if you were to have some issues at home, perhaps a family member not being very well, you take that burden with you to work. It's one indivisible whole, and it should be recognised as such. And that's why I've developed a series of processes to enable you to combine personal and business life and all the other dimensions, and to make sure that you're living life holistically and making sure that you're making time for all the important things. And these important things I call 10s, 25s, 50s and 100s. 10s are everyday things that will make your day a 10 out of 10 day. And what I tend to do each morning is I scroll through on my phone my list of 10s and ask myself, which ones will I have today? What 10s can I have today? So for example, it might be a cup of tea at 6 o'clock in a bone china cup. It could be going to the gym, or alternatively for a run. I might have a lovely bowl of porridge with berries for breakfast. Perhaps that evening, maybe have a sushi for the evening, and perhaps book to see a film at the cinema. It's all about the little things that you can do that give you a 10 out of 10 experience. I've put a whole list down there of the things that work for me. Your list will be very different. The key is, though, to identify as many as you possibly can and to get really, really clear each day about scheduling time for a 10 out of 10 moment. 25s are bigger. 25s are what I call memories of the year. Things that when you look back at the last 12 months, you go, yeah, that was a 25. Often these things include holidays and breaks away. They might also include certain work highlights. For me, for example, international speaking engagements are often memories of the year. But I also include other things that I enjoy, such as going to see Wimbledon tennis or Lords for the cricket. I love our inspirational speakers and, of course, putting on our big event each year, the EA Masters. It's always a highlight for me in my business year. So 25s tend to be bigger and often need to be planned and scheduled as they include others. 50s are bigger still. 50s are lifelong memories, things that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Some of these, for me, include major cycling events like the time I cycled across India, or from Boston to New York, or Yosemite to San Francisco. I'll always remember trekking to Machu Picchu. But they also include other things like buying my new home. In fact, each home that I've bought has been a lifelong memory, as has writing my next book, Indivisible Life. Investing in businesses as well, and keeping fit. The London Triathlon was one that stands out in particular as something I'll always remember. There is a higher level still, though, and that's what I call 100s. And these are life-changing moments. Now, depending on your age, you may well be able to schedule some 100s. Things like your first job, getting married, having children, buying your first home. Those are all 100s. As you get older, these things perhaps become less significant from the purpose that you've actually done them. You've ticked them, you got those. So they're harder to plan. But what I find is that the more that you shoot for 50s, the more often one or two of them become 100s. For example, climbing Kilimanjaro, I had no idea that it would be 100. I was pretty confident it would be a 50. But it became 100 because it showed to me just what I was capable of, both in terms of physical and mental endurance. And it's significant because it's equipped me, or rather it's given me the confidence to know that I can pursue other activities. Things like setting up Agents Giving was 100. Indeed, my first book was definitely 100 in that it's given me access to an international audience and allowed me to travel the world speaking at different events and different conventions. So again, with all of these, the 10s, 25s, 50s and 100s, please, you will have your own, and it's unlikely that many, if any, from my list will fall onto yours. The key is for you to identify what are the important things for you. And I suggest that you do as I do and keep a note of them on your phone so that you can access them at any point in time. I also shared with you the process that I use in order to schedule both my work and other commitments, and to make sure that my life is being organised in, again, a holistic way. And it's a 6-step process that starts with what I call reviewing the Everest mission. So for me, I find a set time. It tends to be a Sunday morning for me, but it could be any time for you that suits. But ideally, a time and place that's quiet, where you can sort of shut yourself away for 10, 15 minutes, half an hour or so, and just get really clear about what is important to you. And I start off by reviewing my Everest mission. And that's where I always start off with. But I also look at my 10s, 25s, 50s and 100s as well. The next step is to actually review the different roles that I have. And I've got several of them, and they are all important to me. It's important that I'm a good father, it's important that I'm a good partner and family member and so on. And I've identified about 12 key roles. And what I do is I score each of them out of 10 on that weekly basis to say, well, how am I doing? How am I doing as a boss this week? How am I doing as a speaker this week? And if ever a score gets below 7, then it needs immediate attention. In fact, at 7, it also requires looking at, because if I don't attend to it, I can be pretty confident it will drop down to a 6 or lower. And so what I tend to do then is just imagine that I've got to identify certain goals for these roles. So for each of the different roles, I look at them and think, right, what can I do this week? What are goals that I can set? And I make a list of them and list out all of those goals that I'm going to shoot for in the next 7 days. Having done that, my approach is to then organise weekly. And I think that some of you will have noted that I organise not only my business activities, but also I schedule into my diary my personal activities as well. So all of my gym appointments are scheduled there. Even the phone call, weekly phone call with my mum is in my diary. I make sure that I make time and allocate time for all the different activities. And that's because if I don't, something is bound to slip. Now, I make the point again about spontaneity. Although I've organised weekly, I am able to be spontaneous. If something else crops up, if something important happens that is time-based, in other words, it can't wait, I'll reschedule stuff, absolutely. And if something better, a better option comes up, I'll take that instead. But what I find is that by organising myself weekly on both a business and personal basis, I get a lot more done. What then needs to happen, of course, is at the moment of truth is you need to act and or adjust. And what I might mean by that is if you've planned to go to the gym or you've planned to go for a run, you look out the window, it's a bit miserable, it's raining, whatever, you've got choices. You can either adjust and say I'll go another day, or you can act on it and say, no, I'm gonna just get it done. And that's my preference. I'd rather just get it done and get it out the way. Particularly if it's one of those what we call eat the frog type roles. In other words, something which is not very pleasant, but it needs to get done. And I make sure that I do this on a daily basis. So I'm setting myself up each day with a set of clear goals that I want to achieve and schedule those on a daily basis then around the various appointments that I've got. The final step each week is to evaluate what have I done. And by doing that, I then add to my what I call highlights list. And I've got on my phone a section of all my highlights of the year. And I tend to attach a photograph to it, and it gives me my memories of the year. It becomes my list of 25s, and it also helps me to, when planning for the next year, remember the things that I really enjoyed so I can plan more of them. But there's another benefit as well, and that is if things get tough, and let's face it, they do for all of us from time to time, it's really good just to sort of flick through some of the highlights and remind ourselves of what we have achieved as well as what we've got to address and focus on. So, in summary, the first thing is to make sure that you focus on the important and not just the urgent. Look, stuff happens all the time. We've got client issues to deal with, we've got team members issues to deal with, personal issues to deal with. Stuff happens, but we must make sure that we don't allow the interruptions to completely dominate our diaries. We must make sure that we focus on the important things as well as the urgent things. In order that we get a balance, therefore, it's really important that we schedule our personal goals as well as the business ones. I can't emphasise that too much. Life is one indivisible whole. And the final thing is to make sure that we don't cram our diaries so full that there is no breathing space. As von Moltke the Elder, the Prussian general, said, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. You can have a perfectly crafted plan, but it will never ever pan out exactly as you hoped it would do, because stuff happens. So allow time for the unexpected and make sure that you are building in a contingency effectively. So, your homework. You need to complete your Everest mission and your 135s. That's really, really important, and that will provide you with a fantastic foundation as we go forward in the year to enable you to become an ever more effective leader. I'd also like you to read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. For me, the most important book in the personal development field that I've ever read, and one that I always encourage people to read. It really will give you a fantastic grounding. And then thirdly, to put into practice all that you've learned from this first session, everything you learned from Pete Wilkinson and everything you picked up from me during the course of the day. If you don't put it into practice, then to be blunt, it's a waste of time. And you should practice it first and then make sure that you are actually coaching your team members, but only do so once you've mastered it, once you've made sure that you're able to deliver on it, then coach the others. Finally, a bit of feedback. The person who sent me this asked me if they could remain anonymous, but you know who you are, and I'm massively grateful to get today an additional bit of feedback in the form of a poem, which I think is absolutely lovely, and I found it very, very touching indeed, and thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you also to all of you for the feedback. Yesterday, the average score that you gave for the day was 9.35 out of 10, which makes me feel really, really good about the programme, makes me feel really, really good about the work that we're doing. But above all, it's just great to know that you guys are enjoying the programme so far. And my goal now is to make sure that we make it ever better. So I'm very much looking forward to the webinar in March. Details of that will come out shortly. But thank you for your time. And as I said on the day, if there is anything, please feel free to get in touch. All the best.